So this is last hand of the day, and at this point, I was down a lot, and then Paul was actually up a lot, the biggest winner so far. And then he has been playing very standard. I'm playing a little bit loose as always, and I just lost a big hand right before this hand, like 2 hands ago. Before this,
Well, just for the record, for people who know me or may not know me, when it comes to making decisions based on whether I'm winning in the game or not winning in the game, it doesn't really matter if I'm winning. So I know that's something that was spoken about on the commentary at the time. I didn't even count like how much I was winning. I knew I was winning, obviously, but I didn't count how much I was winning and how calling would affect my overall win or loss like during the stream. So that didn't really bother me. Okay, so I think Fish Bruce is obviously raised under the gun. I think like blind or like a blind raised under the gun, and I think L was in the straddle. I need to double check. I just need the tape to run a little bit more to see the positions. There you go. So yes, I was in the small blind with pocket aces. I know the stream's coming into an end. Obviously, I went for the raise of 600. I kind of didn't want L to call just because L's obviously an aggressive player. And yeah, you talk about metagame. I haven't actually played with L too much off the stream, but I know he's just like I see him as a bit of a street player. You know, I'm not too sure how much studying he's done off the table, but yeah, he's not the best person to be playing a pot out of position with because he's very aggressive.
and I was the one who straddled. Uh, at this point, I was a little bit tilted. I should never call with this 10 jack offsuit, but I just out of position. I just call. But I was in position with Paul. Okay, I guess it's a little bit okay. And then we were pretty deep. I called 600, fish Bruce fold.
Anyway, so we get the 9-4-3 flop after raising, and you can see here we're like, well, I say fairly deep. I mean, the pot's 1,500, L's got 10,000, so it's a pretty big SPR. So usually nice to start with a check. One, to protect our checking range, and two, because I think betting and getting raised isn't always that attractive. So I decided to go for a check. L bets.
349, and this flop is very good for Paul. He has all the over pairs, and I have a lot of pairs and junks too. And I think this should be a small bet on his part or medium, like medium size, 50% pot. But instead he checks, and I bet 500, like representing a small pair.
And I decided to call. I think L would just usually perceive me to call with a lot of like ace high kind of hands. And I think if I went for the check raise, there's going to be a lot of hands that like kind of like wrap around the nine. So like 10-8, Jack 10, Queen Jack, sort of, and then the 4-3. So like 5-6, 7-5, 7-6. So I thought like check calling aces might be a better ploy. I might go for the check raise if the board is like flush draw. Maybe I have a few more bluffs that way.
So at this point, I was thinking that okay, the nine when the nine shows on the turn, I was thinking most likely most of the time he don't have a nine because most nines are incentive to bet to protect their hand. So I was thinking, okay, now it's time for me to represent a nine. So the pot was 2,500. I bet 2,000. So almost pot size bet to represent the nine. I don't know how many four I could have here, because many fours. If I have a four, I could probably just mostly check, like maybe very low frequency bet with this size with a four. So I bet 2,000. He calls.
So I check called the flop. L's gone for a 2,000 bet on the turn into 2,500. And at this point, I just feel like I'm kind of way ahead or way behind. And raising wouldn't be that good because, again, if he's bluffing hands like Queen 10 or Queen Jack or 7-6, he's just going to fold if I check raise. So I decided to go for another check call.
And the river is four. Um, at this point, he called me twice. I just think he most likely have something what he has, like aces or kings. Um, and I was thinking this is the last hand of the night, and he was up a lot. And then it's from my shoes, it's very hard to find a bluff by cold calling pre-flop, bet the flop, bet the turn, shove the river. It's pretty hard to find me to find a bluff from my side. Like deuces, maybe like sixes. Sixes, sixes more like some of the time just call too. So with my hand in the bottom of my range, like um, so I just shoved and representing a nine basically.
Obviously, as L's gone all in, my perception of this spot was that my hand is just never a fold. Like I knew straight away, like I'm not really supposed to fold the hand. But one thing I know about L is that he's quite a smart player. You know, I don't think he's like one to just like bluff very erratically. And maybe if he did on previous streams, I know from playing with him and watching him, I feel like he's kind of learned from a few errors that he's made in terms of like his all-ins. And I feel like if he goes back himself and watches some of the streams, maybe he would have like tightened up on some of his bluffs a little bit. So for me, even though there's so many bluffs available, like the ones I mentioned, the ones that wrap around the 4 and 3, the runs that wrap around the 9, like the 8-7, 10-8, Jack 10, Queen 10, Queen Jack, these kind of hands. I felt like once he gets check called 2 streets, and now the river's a 4, I felt like it would just almost be too obvious for him to like go all in, you know?
Paul was winning a lot, so I thought he probably don't want to risk in this kind of situation where not many people find so many bluff on this turn and river. So I think that's how he decided to fold. Um, yeah, that was my thinking about the hand.
Yeah, be too obvious. And even though my hand is great because I block one of the combos of Ace 4 suited, yeah, it's obviously unlikely that L has got Ace 4 of what's that, Ace 4 of clubs, because obviously we've got the Ace of clubs in our hand. And obviously we block both of the combos of Ace 9 suited, which is Ace 9 of diamonds, Ace 9 of clubs. I just felt like on a double paired board, which is obviously 2 9s and 2 4s, people just naturally assume that when you check call 2 streets, even if L had put me on Ace King or Ace High, that maybe he just thought that I would still call this kind of hand. So even though my hand is supposed to call and he's got so many natural bluffs, I just felt like it would be too obvious to bluff, and ultimately that's why I decided to fold. I also thought that in a previous hand that L and I had played, he'd actually bet like second pair for value once I check called the flop, and I believe that if L had a 4 here, a hand such as 5-4 or 6-4 suited, just one of those like funky hands that L likes to play, I just felt like he would still value bet it on the turn. And once I check call, he would still jam. So he would just still go all in on the river, should I say. So yeah, I just felt like I lose to pocket threes. He's still going to have plenty of 9x in his calling range pre-flop. I still felt like he would bet a 4 on the turn. And then in terms of his bluffs, even though he's got so many, I just felt like it would almost be too obvious. I just feel like he would think that I just wouldn't have a fold on the river. So for that reason, I just decided to make the tight laydown. It was the last hand of the stream, and I just felt like if L was ever going to bluff, it was probably going to be this one. But yeah, I just felt like it was too obvious, and I just decided to like let the hand go. I don't get too concerned that somebody's bluffed me. Like I think it's great for the game. You know, I like people that bluff because that's the kind of player that I am. And it kind of gets boring if you always call the same person and they only show you the nuts. So I actually appreciate L's game a lot. I think he's a great thinking player, and everything, all the hands that I've played with him from the first stream until now, I've like thoroughly enjoyed. So okay, I got bluff this time, but I'm sure there'll be many more hands to come with him, and yeah, there'll be times I get it right, and there'll be times I get it wrong. Yeah. So just one thing to add, just in terms of L, I've played with him a lot now, and something I've prided myself on in the last sort of like 5 years of playing is that I feel like I'm pretty good at getting some live reads on people, and I'm not necessarily going to say what the live reads are for obvious reasons, but I used like 3 time banks when L went all in, so I gave myself a few minutes, and I tried to speak to him. I tried to toy with my chips. I tried to get a read in terms of any like sort of like movement. And one thing I have to give L props for is that he's always like very stoic. You know, he's always very stationary, and yeah, I just couldn't get any type of read off him. You know, obviously I needed the time to think about the hand. And yeah, I just couldn't get any reads of him. I just thought that he was like very stoic in the hand, and he just didn't give much away. And it's frustrating because playing and looking at people during the hands, you find out so much about how they're feeling in terms of their emotions and just the way that they move, their reactions once certain cards come out. But you just can't get much off him. So I just got to give him props for that. And Yeah, I'll be back for more pain on another stream.